Morning, fellow zombies. Are we alive yet? Are we awake yet? Because I sure as hell ain't. It's 1:49 in the morning, West Coast time for Thursday, the 16th of May, 2024. The Weaver Agency of Roseman, California. Who's zombie? Yeah. Well, this zombie craves sleep and sometimes craves coffee. The older I get, the worse it's getting. Even when I get coffee, it's starting out to be acid indigestion. I think maybe I'll be switching over to teas more often. Okay, there are rails comparing to politics and life and other things that you just don't touch unless you want to get the zap on this one. And then beware the damn consequences happens. Because I tell you something, I'm saying it too many times in a lot of things. And I have to be aware of what I'm doing and saying because if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to be taking off the zeros and ones at this point over here. And this message is for those who are still using social media for monetizing and then trying to find the topics necessary. But also, it's concerning about our personal choices that we talk about online. And some of them may be misconstrued as one way when we didn't want to look at it or indicate it for this particular pattern. Because it's hard to talk about it because it does touch on people's nerves and algorithms out there who are supposedly watching out to see whether or not we're screwing that up one way or another. If somebody catches my hint out there. And so far he's asking himself, he's questioning himself, what happened? Was it a specific action? Probably. Or maybe the audience was looking out for one thing or another. It's flaky when you're depending upon everybody else for their hits and views because that's how your business is being run. Mine, on the other hand, is not that way because I don't run mine on a business. I don't make money off of the stuff I say. Mine's for posterity, basically. I'm not trying to do it for altruistic, at least mostly. I'm doing it for. But if whatever I say helps another person out one way or another, good. If it doesn't, things happen. But as I said before on my own channel, I'm doing it as a lifeboat. In the event I happen to run into a mental health situation where I happen to lose my mind and lose my sanity, not to mention lose my memories, I want something that keeps reminding me of who and what I am, and not to mention my memories are everything else matters to me a great deal. I tell stories. I talk about stories. Maybe not about books being written, but my own book that's being still written until the time for me to, and that's it. I'm gone. I'm history. And you know what ticks me off more and more? I know I'm going to be sliding this one over to the diary of the graver named John Weaver, which is me. I talk about death. I talk about life. I talk about things that matter the most to me because they do matter the most to me. And it frustrates people because do I talk about anything else? No. Fine. I can talk about politics, and that's a realm I'm constantly getting shocked and trying to get used to half the time anyway. But we're talking about images that we throw out of what people would think about me. A certain image, a certain persona, something like, oh, I know this guy. He's this way because he's talking about this way. You know, I said before, and I'll say it again. You take your topic, and everywhere around the topic, you have different viewpoints looking at that topic. Think of it, and I'll bring up the issue again. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, the album cover. You see the crystal. You see the light going into the crystal, even though it's a black background. But that's how they produced the album a long time ago. But you also see a spectrum coming out of the thing. That's the most artistic I can get, is being a little sciencey on this one. Yeah, it's not a word, but I'm throwing it out anyway. But it's a viewpoint. It's a viewpoint. Everyone else has got their own viewpoints of the light spectrum, what the pure light source is, or what the pure topic is, but everyone else has got their own public opinions about what they're looking at here, their own interpretations. So not one is true, except for that viewer looking through that particular view at that time. That's true to them because that's what they're interpreting. That's their truth. But sometimes we have algorithms out there who are programmed for a certain pattern of their own viewpoint of what the truth is supposed to be, and other people have a conniption fit over it. Observations, observations, observations. And yeah, it seems like a double standard or a triple standard or something like that. Like, how dare you? I mean, this is not right. Call it out. You got a problem with it? Have an open mind, take a look at the damn thing, but if it's still bugging and living crap out of you, call it out. Shit. One guy's doing it. I mean, he's saying on his own channel it's not fair. Okay, fine. But then you're not going far enough on that one. I mean, we really got to complain about the damn thing. You're putting it on your own video. Why don't you go out more on the limb at this point over here? Just be careful of the branch breaking underneath you. And communicate it to the posters that you have an issue with. And not to mention the social platform. Hard thing concerning about one particular platform, there's no direct contact. You can actually call up or throw a chat bot in there just to get the information out of it. It's kind of one of those platforms that are artificially generated with their responses and stuff. It's very hard to deal with that. Sometimes you have to find another way of getting their attention. So if it has to be on a channel, so be it. But just kind of tag up in my suggestion, I'll just tag it up in the description so hopefully they can find out about it. But let's just say if Facebook and I have an issue over one particular topic, and I've got a lot of issues on Facebook on this one. I'm constantly throwing it out there in the comment sections, but not just on my own posting. No, that goes on that. That goes on that one. Because when you go into the help inbox section, they have allowed, I don't know if they changed the damn thing or not, I hope not, screenshots. You don't like the damn thing, put your screenshots in there, put something to identify yourself with, throw in the description of this damn thing, throw it out there. Or kind of report it. You don't like this shot or this site or this because it's offensive one way or another. Okay, fine, report the damn thing. There are ways of doing that. If you're going to be talking about a certain television show that has an issue that you don't like, communicate it to them directly. Find a way. Good Lord. There are ways of doing things. One of the things that was being talked about is one rail I usually don't talk about, because this one usually brings up, nasties on this one. Characterizations, not to mention, oh God, if I'm going to try opening up this damn Pandora's box, I'm going to be sucked into this damn wormhole. Oh, right into the damn quicksand, and I'm gone. Certain shows out there require certain voice types to try to be accurate and true to the character. Maybe a long time ago there were substitutions for it, or one cast member would try to do something of imitation to a point. But then after that, things change. They always do. Viewpoints change. And therefore there has to be changes on shows. That being said, I know it's dangling my foot in the water on this one. If there's going to be electric eel, I'm going to be shocked on this damn thing. If there's going to be something nasty in the water, I'm not getting my foot back in there again, let alone in the damn sand. I'm staying back on the drier land, thank you very much. But looking at the cast members of this one show that's been out there since 1989, it's been out there for a long while. 35 seasons? Wow. Some of them are actually just ending or coming close to that ending, or renewed again for another several more seasons before they got to be axed again, put back into the box for a time. This one show has been going through voice actors left and right over the past 30 years because things have changed. We're appreciative of it, and at times we're asking ourselves, what the hell are we listening to? Yeah, controversy, because tastes change as well. And you have to change, you have to adapt to it. Otherwise, all hell breaks loose. That being said, let's move on to another topic on this one, shall we? I was watching yesterday, last night before I went to bed, what was happening in the colleges again. They're jumping from one campus to another campus across the Southland here. This time it was Irvine's turn. They were trying to do their camp out. They were trying to get their tents set up, and they were going to be doing a long term. Apparently the regents and chancellor over there said, nope, we're not having this one over here. So, contacted law enforcement. A few agencies showed up in force, made their move, and started doing the arrests and dismantled the camp. But they've already done damage on the property already. It's one thing if they said they were peaceful enough, but if you're going to be doing some damaging on the damn thing, on the property, you're open season for everything. So, but I keep trying to post this one in my head on this one, and wondering if all of it's going to be worth it down the road, because I keep asking myself, compared to the protests we've seen back in the 60s, for those who barely remember it out of our diapers, watching this on the television, we had no context of what we were seeing concerning about the Vietnam War and the protests across campuses across the country on this one. Students were willing to give up their life and liberty and freedom for their cause of saying what they saw on television, and they don't want any more part of it. They don't want to be drafted into the situation. It was a totally chaotic situation, but they were being put into a situation themselves physically to go out there to be part of this massacre they didn't like to see in the television. They really didn't want to be any part of it. That was one set of conditions, viewpoints, and things happening over there. In this time period right now, we still got the reactions happening because we physically are not being drafted into the situation. We're seeing how the situation is playing out. And then there's a lot of questions about how the media, corporate media and independent media, are looking at this whole damn thing. Even Al Jazeera's got to be one particular viewpoint. So as I said before about that one item, with everything else looking at it, this is also a viewpoint to look at it. And so the students are willing to give up a little bit of freedom at this point over here, but it's getting worse because they're protesting on the campus, and it's a lot different now with the regents than it was back then. I kind of asked myself, was it different back then compared to now? Regarding the regents, regarding what they're trying to do and accomplish, how much they allowed freedom of demonstration for what the students are fighting to believe in? Did they also suspend the students a long time ago to keep them away from any future education, as they're doing right now? It's a lot easier to do that because now we have electronics. We have 0-1 algorithms. We have the internet. We have wiring. We have infrastructure of the electronic kind. And we will find out if you're from one particular college or not. And if you are from one particular college and you actually demonstrated over here because of a certain topic over here that they didn't like, your future of academia is screwed. It is literally screwed. So yeah, there are consequences for the things that we're dealing with right now, as long as you realize you may or may not be able to deal with what you're going to be dealing with. But we still have the freedom of, we still have the First Amendment rights to do so. But we have to keep remembering, it's not costless. There's always been a cost for the rights that we have. I'm not saying we avoid them. I'm saying we have to understand it. We're going to be demonstrating. We're going to be using our rights like crazy. We're going to be going for processing. We have to understand what we can and can't do. What's allowed and what's not allowed. It's a tricky course concerning about our freedoms that we have. We think, oh, but they're absolute. They're not absolute. Over the past centuries, a couple of centuries and more, the Supreme Court, with different administrations and different judges, have been looking at our rights and restructuring them, redefining them. What's allowed, what's not allowed. What's thought of back then was a lot different in their viewpoint because they didn't have what we have now. They didn't have the politicians that we have now. They didn't have the viewpoints that the judges have. So the federal courts, the appellates, and then the SCOTUSes. Understand what we're going to be taking on. We got to realize we may have the right to do so, but there will be a cost. I'm not talking about blood. It may or may not. I don't know. But if we're willing to theoretically fight for them one way or another, hopefully not the physical, even fight through this legal system on it, we got to prepare for that kind of warfare, verbally and written, orally. We sure as hell ain't going to be the physical kind when we're going out there and trying to confront somebody and doing something nasty. I wanted to ask, I'll probably have to send something like this over to the professors on this one. They would like to see it anyway. Neither would the administration. But I gotta pose the question to them anyway. Concerning about how is our rights right now being redefined that we're no longer able to use the rights because we're pissing off too many people? I would send something over to the administration of Antelope Valley College. I would send it over to the deans of certain departments and certain professors in charge of those departments. I would also send something over to law enforcement on this one, because the students are trying to use and utilize the freedom of speech. They're trying to utilize the First Amendment rights at this point. And yes, on public places, they're supposed to have that right. According to SCOTUS rulings that we've had over the past century and a half, they've been trying to tell us that, yes, we have the right. But when it comes down for the administration of the damn thing, that's why I'm always stuck on this particular court case. I'm always saying something about, and this will pissing off people, but, you got to understand, guys, I'm still living in the realm of the academic. I've seen stuff happening these days. I'm dealing with the reality check, and I'm dealing with the academic. And sometimes these two have a problem with it. And I'm not just talking about green. I'm talking about a thumb and a finger. How do they mix? I'm trying to snap my fingers, but usually it doesn't. A middle finger for that one. But there are opinions. There are viewpoints. There are contentions happening. With those, we have lawmakers crafting the laws from the local to the federal. What is and what isn't. What can be, what's not be. What's allowed, what's not allowed. The reinterpretation, the judicial review that was instituted in the into the federal court system. Was it Madison versus Marbury? Allowing judicial review changes our concept of what's allowed and what's not allowed, what's written and what's not written, what's created, what's not. We've got SCOTUS making rules and laws just by judicial review, allowed a long time ago. The practice still continues. That's a reality check. The other reality check I'm throwing over to the guys again that I mentioned, to the administrators of Antelope Valley College, to the deans of Antelope Valley College, to to the scholarly experts over at Antelope Valley College, to the history department over at Antelope Valley College, and to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for their interpretation. Because the thing is, I'm throwing at these guys here. We're talking about utilizing free speech on a potential public campus that may or may not be having more issues than we can deal with. What is the limit that they are allowed to protest? It's not the type, it's not the item itself. There are rules, there are regulations, but there are allowances to a point. How far are we willing to do that point? Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again on this one. So this is one particular example that they're going to be looking at me and wondering what the hell I'm saying. Well, I'm saying this because I'm trying to utilize this one. If I could just find the damn thing. I had it again. You write a sign on here, and then you lose a sign. How can I lose a sign? Frustration galore. Here we go. Somewhere. Ah! Okay. This is for you guys out there in Antelope Valley College, because I need to get some input from you folks. This is something maybe influential, inflammatory. It may boggle and puzzle your brains on this one. You may be terrified because this could be the absolute thing, and you realize I'm trying to set you guys up. Here it is. You got it? What happens if I am on the campus, hypothetically speaking, I am a protester. I want to protest something. And I'm going to stand in one particular area. That's a major thoroughfare, causeway. And I'm going to show this to people. Whether or not this will get their attention is going to be up to those who pass by. But it's also going to be depending upon what the rules and regulations are at the campus of what they allow and what they don't allow for freedom of speech. How long can a protester stay there? There are no guidelines written. There's nothing legal. There's no precedent in the school rules on this. At least not that I researched so far. In order to challenge, one has to be aware of the costs that this will create. I'll put you on pause for a moment. Okay, I'm on the site for Antelope Valley College. I typed into the search engine they had the word conduct. One section I went into was the student conduct red flags. And they have indicated on here if there was any disorderly, lewd, indecent, or obscene conduct, habitual profanity or vulgarity, obstruction or disruption of teaching, defiance or refusal to adhere to directions. But they don't tell you. They don't tell you that producing a sign that just says this is a sign or any other kind of topic would be considered obstruction or disruption of teaching, unless it's outside the campus and on a causeway. Unless, of course, we're talking about interference of teachers looking at the thing or trying to get through a mob. If we're talking about disorderly, lewd, indecent, or obscene conduct. Well, let's see, producing a notebook that says this is a sign. Would this be considered disorderly if it's just stating a statement in there? Is it a fact? Is it concerning about something happening in the near future or the far future or the immediate future? Is it considered lewd or indecent? If it just says that this is just a sign, then what's so lewd and indecent about it? Could it be the person promoting it or showing it? Well, if he's got jeans and a t-shirt or tennis shoes, or maybe sweatpants and a shirt, and a vest, and a goofy fishing hat, would that be considered indecent or lewd? Would that also be considered obscene conduct? I don't know, am I? Unless, of course, I'm going to be pushing people, into the sign into people's faces at that point, and make some kind of weird ass remarks at this point over here that might piss off people. I could go into hypothetically, into a characterization saying, "This is a sign! Don't you understand? This is a sign." Do something dramatic like that. That would be probably considered disorderly, but would it be considered a disruption? If I'm not going to be using any profanity or vulgarity in the damn thing, going off the mouth worse than a salty sailor can in the old days, that will probably get me in trouble. Obstruction or disruption of teaching. Well, what kind of obstruction am I doing? If it's one thing, if I happen to go in front of a classroom and showing this is a sign, is that going to be disruption or not? If it's going to be disrupting a class, could be. But if I'm in the main causeway away from the classroom doors, just sitting up to the side or standing and just showing this to people, would that be considered obstruction? If I'm out of people's way, or maybe sitting down on a bench just showing this to people, would that be considered obstruction or disruption? Would that also be defiance? Because I'm sitting on a table, or actually I'm sitting on a chair, or a bench, or whatever they got out there, and I'm showing this. That's one thing if I happen to go into the cafeteria, for example, and I just put up the sign. Is there any disruption of teaching? Nope. Is there any obstruction? I don't know. Could be. Is there any defiance? Well, who am I defying if I'm just showing up the sign? Somebody says, "Please stop." Why? Because I asked you to do so. Why? You're showing up that thing. What thing? It says this is a sign. Is it? It is. It just says this is a sign. What's the point? It's disruptive. How so? It's maddening. But then again, define what madness is all about. Define insanity at this point of all. That's one thing. If I wanted to do a camp out, find an area on a lawn and actually try to be part of the campus physically. Still showing the sign saying this is a sign. Not saying about anything else, just saying it's the sign. So how far can a person, a student on the campus, how far can that student go to make a point? What is the limit? Is it the amount of complaints that the student is getting? Is the amount of tension that may be disrupting people left and right? Would that be considered disorderly? We are seeing something in our lifetime that only the generation back in the 60s have seen. But after that, I don't remember if we actually had any disruptions like this on a consistent basis. And if we have, I've probably forgotten to hold the damn thing. I'd like to know. So I'm going to put this on pause again. I have to realize something that maybe I should have done a long time ago, was trying to understand how history like this that's happening right now is going to be affecting us a great deal. I kept thinking about the Vietnam War. I forgot about the civil rights protests that we've had and the protests that we're experiencing right now. There have been more since the 1940s. I'm coming across a couple of websites. I'm going to get those links, attach them to the video here, because I want to understand more and more. See, this is the reason why I like going to college in my adulthood, because I've got perspective, context, and I'm trying to understand what's going on these days, because this stuff is relevant. Everything we have in history is relevant. Everything's interconnected. We just haven't seen the dots on this one. We haven't seen the fine lines on these things. But they all got connections to it. And this information is definitely needed for reports out there. See, I don't think I covered this in U.S. history. World Civilization will give you the bare basics. Political science will try to cover a few things, only if it seems relevant. I wish I was still back in the political science classes right now, because that would give me a little bit more information about it. So while doing a Google search on this thing, I mean, I know I could do the book search on this one, but since I've already got internet services working on this one, I'm trying to see if I can get enough PDF files to make a case. At least enough links on here to throw it in there. I don't think the students have quite understood a little bit. I mean, they say the immediate stuff, but they also understand that they are part of something larger. It's not traditions that we're dealing with. It's more than that. It's a heritage. It's a heritage. It's an inherent thing that we're learning. With protests, there is conflict. There are sides arguing and basically doing a logjam with each other. But somewhere in the struggle, the truth is changing, struggling to get out, being vocalized, being demonstrated. How far can we go because this particular item is that important enough for us to go through this? I know I kept thinking about the Civil War. There was no protesting in the Civil War. Was there protesting in the Spanish War? Were there any protesting concerning about World War I, let alone World War II? I didn't see that. But what I'm seeing right now is something being played out right in front of us. I was more in tune as a kid, or out of it, but still, of the Vietnam protest. Never did understand about the civil rights protest because it was too fresh, too new. Until I get into the school systems and then try to learn about it, but there was not much information back in the 70s or 80s. We were still understanding what the hell was going on. And Vietnam was just something you didn't talk about. Kind of sucked, you know? It really sucked. I understand about the protests concerning about the COVID scare that we actually had. And about the politicians being too damn corrupt, or maybe something about economics happening, or particular foreign policies happening that there had been marches going on. Let's not get started about January 6th, okay? Started out one way, and then all hell broke loose on that one. But a few sites that I'm pulling up right now. Vox, CNN, and there was another site out there. I'll get to it in a couple of seconds. But I just wanted to get 3 examples, PDF files, and the links that I can actually maybe put something in writing. It'll be a hell of a paper, I'll tell you that much. I know a book would have been better, If I had books on protesting, yeah. How old would they be? I don't know. It depends. And who's writing the damn thing in the first place? If it's going to be accurate or not. But I don't think in history classes that I've ever came across that we. If, by the way, word of warning: if you happen to see anything crawling across the screen, don't freak. I am having bug war here. Word of warning. You know what could make a sign like that saying this is bug war? Of course, they probably wouldn't understand that one unless they're already going through a cockroach invasion. And then understand that you're battling against the forces of nature. Wikipedia is, well, replete. I mean, they're complete with this stuff, but sometimes it's just, you have to go to different areas, you know. But I just wanted to get three. I'm not talking about riots. I'm talking about student protests throughout time, about a century and a half, of what was important to us, what had meaning, what had value. And not just student protests, but protests, period. Because, let's face it, when we started out in the 13 colonies, we had issues, didn't we? This is a long video, forgive me, but I got to make the point clear on this one. When we started out with the 13 colonies, we thought we were trying to get away from England and other places in Europe, that we wanted to experience something new and fresh. Challenges that we weren't expecting, and challenges that really faced us and annihilated a colony or two. Roanoke, ring a bell. We also brought in our own way of thinking things, believing in things, and for decades after that, we tried to accommodate our homelands, but we really wanted to start fresh and become our own people. Until we had the homeland, until we had one particular country really had an itch in their shoe, or should I say a cockabur in their shoe, irritating their footsteps, making sure we get irritated. We had disputes, disagreements, we had conflict happening in a new land. But we also tried to make the best out of it. We tried our best to make protests known to the homeland. One particular country, England, ring a bell. But they wouldn't hear of it. They didn't want to hear of it. They just wanted the resources out of us. Like succubus. We gotta suck it out of the new land. And we had to protest. They couldn't listen to us in writing, so we'll do it in action. We affect the commodity. We affect business. We affect the economy. It didn't work. So unfortunately, we had to protest the hard way by demonstrations, which unfortunately turned out to be the shot that was heard around the world, so to speak. Our protest gone haywire, but necessary. As sane as it was, we had to do something for our freedom and our liberty, and for the welfare of the colonies. We had to form a country. We even fought among ourselves after we tried to do the establishment. 4 years of it. But it was a long time coming on that particular bout. Because there was major differences we couldn't see eye to eye on. But it was costing too much. Cost of freedom, cost of doing business with our civil liberties, always cost. There's always a cost. Without that cost, the liberties that we experience today would not be appreciated from this generation to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation. We are we are performing the same rituals as our forefathers had, as our ancestors had. I don't think that some of the students who've been in a short time understand this unless they really understand history enough. Even when I hear faculty getting involved, yelling and screaming at the cops, but I'm this kind of person here. Doesn't matter. It didn't matter. Because every time we had to protest, I don't care what the excuse was, we put up, we didn't shut up. And we had to deal with the consequences after that. You're going to have the current generation and the future generations benefit, then you had to put out. And you had to realize it was going to cost, one way or another. Would it be worth it? It depends upon the outcome. If enough people had listened to the message and cared enough. Some of the protests we've had didn't work out too well. Others, maybe more than what we realized, but we couldn't bear dealing with the cost of it. But if it changed the course of history, it changed everybody. Maybe it was worth it. Maybe our civil liberties are worth a penny or two, a pound of flesh. Slap on the wrist, or not being able to continue an education and a career decision. But one will have to keep asking the patriots, was it worth it? Was it worth it? That's my bit of a essay. I will try to get works cited, put them into the description of the video, but I wanted to get this off my chest. I'm coming back to the fall. I'm coming back to the fall, and I'm going to continue and complete my education. And it'll be a bittersweet day come graduation. I know one thing, I'll be seeing ghosts over there. Ghosts of those that have followed. And I'll be asking them, and they'll be asking me the question. There's a song out there from Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Find the Cost of Freedom. If I find a musical link, I'll put that in there too. It's a copyrighted tune. But for me, it's imperative. There's rather two of them out there, 2 or 3 of them out there. But for me, they're relevant. If I can find a link, I'll put it in the description for you.